My husband believed he was being discreet when he slipped a pinch of white powder into my champagne flute while I was momentarily away. What he didn't realize was that I was observing him through a narrow gap in the ornate screen. Nor did he suspect that within half a minute, I would swap my glass with his mother's, the very same woman who had just spent 2 hours berating me as low-class trash in front of half of Atlanta's high society. What unfolded next was more than a mere catastrophe. It became a revelation poised to dismantle their entire empire. Before I reveal how I shattered 3 lives in a single evening, tell me where you're listening from in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you've ever served justice with a cold, hard edge. I'm Scarlett, 35 years old, and tonight was meant to be a celebration. 5 years of marriage to Leo, a man I once considered a king, only to discover he was a jester in a tailored suit. We were dining at Bacchanalia, one of Atlanta's most prestigious eateries, the type of place where the tasting menu costs more than my father's first car, and the quiet is so profound you can hear the ice gently melting in crystal buckets. Seated in my emerald silk dress, I tried to maintain my composure, while my mother-in-law Beatrice dissected me with the precision of a surgeon. At 62, Beatrice wore a Chanel ensemble worth tens of thousands and a string of pearls passed down from her grandmother. Her gaze was as cold and lifeless as a shark's. "You know, Scarlett," she said loudly enough for the nearby table of bankers to overhear, "green isn't really flattering on you. It brings out the yellow tones in your skin. You look almost jaundiced. Or maybe it's just the lighting. It's hard to dress right when you don't have the pedigree." I took a sip of water and smiled. As a forensic accountant, I spent my days uncovering hidden assets and exposing financial deceit. I mastered the art of the poker face. I knew Beatrice despised me because I came from the financial district, not Buckhead. She resented that I earned my own living instead of inheriting wealth. She hated that I wasn't part of the Jack and Jill Club or the right sorority. "Thank you for the fashion tip, Beatrice," I replied serenely. "I'll keep it in mind." Next to me, Leo swirled his cognac but didn't say a word in my defense. He never did. Instead, he checked his watch and tapped his foot anxiously. On his other side sat Chloe, his sister-in-law. Chloe, 28, fair-skinned, wore a smile that was all teeth and no warmth. Married to Leo's younger brother, she was sitting unnervingly close to my husband tonight. Reaching into her purse, Chloe pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table toward me. "Happy anniversary, Scarlett," she chirped. "Here's a little gift. It's a voucher for Dr. Stein in Buckhead. He's a miracle worker, did my nose and chin. I told him about you, and he said he could do wonders for your profile, just a little refinement so you fit better in family photos." Beatrice snorted sharply. "How considerate. Chloe, Scarlett certainly needs all the help she can get. God knows we've tried." I glanced at the voucher-veiled insult disguised as a present. They wanted me to alter my face to resemble theirs, to erase who I truly was. The familiar sting of humiliation rose in my chest, but I swallowed it down. Context to erase the person I truly was. A familiar wave of embarrassment welled up inside me, but I forced it down. I excused myself to use the restroom, needing a moment to collect myself before saying something that might cause a scene. The restroom was at the end of a dim hallway adorned with abstract paintings. I checked my makeup in the mirror, studying my reflection. "You're successful," I reminded myself. "You run your own firm. You paid off your parents' mortgage. You're worth more than all of them combined." I headed back toward the private dining room, but paused just before entering. Through the ornate wooden lattice, I had a clear view of our table. Beatrice was busy checking her reflection in a compact mirror, applying more lipstick. Chloe was texting on her phone, smiling at the screen. And Leo was looking around nervously. I watched as he reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small paper packet. With a quick flick, he poured a white powder into my champagne flute. The powder fizzed briefly and dissolved. My heart froze. My own husband, the man I had promised to love and cherish, was drugging me. I didn't know what it was: poison, a sedative, something worse. His eyes were cold, detached. No love, only calculation. He stirred the drink with his pinky, then wiped it on a napkin. He leaned back and signaled for the waiter to bring the bill. He was plotting something. I could feel it deep down. I had 2 options. I could storm in, yell, and call the police, but it would be my word against his. He was a respected real estate developer. I was the bitter wife from the wrong side of the tracks, or I could play along. I took a deep breath and returned to the room. My face was a mask of calm politeness. As I neared the table, luck was on my side. A passing waiter stumbled slightly, bumping into Leo's chair and spilling a drop of red wine sauce near his elbow. Leo exploded. "You idiot! Watch where you're going! Do you know how much this suit costs? Get a manager here immediately." While Leo yelled at the frightened waiter, Chloe leaned away to avoid the splash, and Beatrice focused on her reflection again. I made my move. My glass and Beatrice's glass were identical crystal flutes, both filled with vintage Dominion, sitting just inches apart on the white tablecloth. With a steady hand honed from years of dealing with intimidating men, I reached out. In one smooth motion, I slid my glass to the right and pulled Beatrice's glass to the left. It took less than a second, no one noticed. The waiter was apologizing, Leo was yelling, Beatrice was dabbing her lips. I sat down and pulled the clean glass toward me. I looked at Leo. His shouting had stopped. He turned to me, his face softening into a fake smile that made my skin crawl. He picked up his cognac. "To 5 years," he said, raising his glass. "To patience and to the future." I raised my glass, the one that had been Beatrice's. I glanced at Beatrice. She lifted the glass that had been mine, the one with the powder. "To the future," Beatrice said, her eyes mocking. "May you finally learn your place in it." We clinked glasses. I brought the rim to my lips and pretended to sip while watching over the crystal edge. Beatrice took a long swallow, draining half her glass at once. She loved expensive champagne almost as much as she loved cruelty. I set my glass down untouched. The clock in my mind started ticking. 10 minutes went by. She reveled in cruelty. I placed my glass on the table and untouched. The clock in my head began its relentless countdown. 10 minutes slipped away. The topic turned to the forthcoming charity gala at the church. Beatrice was the organizer. She craved the control. She spoke about her intent to exclude certain members who failed to meet the donation criteria. I observed her intently. At first, the changes were barely noticeable. A sheen of sweat appeared on her forehead, not a radiant glow, but a slick dampness. She waved a menu in front of her face. "Is it warm in here?" she snapped at the waiter. "Turn up the air conditioning, I'm sweltering." "It's 70 degrees, ma'am," the waiter responded calmly. Beatrice shot him a sharp glare. "Don't contradict me. I know when I'm overheated." Then her pupils began to dilate, swelling until her eyes were almost entirely black, swallowing the irises. She blinked rapidly, shaking her head as if trying to clear a fog. Her speech became slightly slurred at first, cutting off the ends of her words. Leo watched me closely, anticipating my collapse, waiting for me to cause a commotion. His gaze shifted from my glass to my expression. Why isn't she reacting? His eyes seemed to question. He ignored his mother, indifferent to her. His focus was solely on the scheme. 20 minutes later, the drug hit Beatrice like a runaway train. She slammed her hand down on the table with such force that the silverware bounced. Everyone paused mid-bite. Beatrice unleashed a low guttural laugh, a stark contrast to her usual refined chuckle. It was the laugh of someone losing their grip on reality. "You're all staring at me," she boomed. "Why are you staring? Is there something on my face?" She rubbed her cheeks, smearing her costly lipstick across her chin like war paint. "Mother," Leo said, frowning, "are you okay? You look flushed." Beatrice turned toward him. "Shut up, Leo. You were always the weak one, just like your father. Spineless. You can't even earn your own money. You have to take it from your wife." The room fell into a heavy silence. Leo's complexion drained of color. Beatrice rose, but her legs wobbled. She swayed, clutching the tablecloth to steady herself, pulling a bread basket to the floor. "Beatrice," Chloe said, extending a hand. "Maybe you should sit down. You don't look well." Beatrice brushed Chloe's hand aside with unexpected force. "Don't touch me, you white trash. I know what you really are. You think you're special because of your blonde hair and blue eyes. You're nothing. You're a parasite." Chloe gasped, clutching her pearls. "Beatrice, what are you saying?" "I'm saying I know about you and Leo," Beatrice screamed. She climbed onto her chair, heels digging into the velvet seat. I know you two were involved before you married his brother. I know you still are. In my house, in my guest room, I hear you. The entire restaurant was now focused on us. Waiters froze mid-step. Other diners pulled out their phones. Beatrice didn't care. The drug had stripped away all social filters, exposing the harsh, ugly truth beneath. She stepped down from the chair onto the table. Her foot crushed a platter of roasted duck, sending grease and sauce flying. She kicked the platter, hurling it through the air, striking Chloe in the chest. Sauce dripped down Chloe's white dress like blood. Chloe screamed a sharp cry of shock. "Mom, get down!" Leo shouted, standing and trying to restrain her. "You're causing a scene!" Beatrice looked down at him like a vengeful goddess. He yelled, rising to his feet and attempting to hold her back. "You're making a scene!" Beatrice glanced down at him like a wrathful deity. "A scene. I'll give you a scene. I am Beatrice Washington, and I control this town. I control the mayor. I control the police chief. And I control you." She aimed a shaking finger at me. "And you little rat. You think you're so smart with your numbers and your spreadsheets? My son is going to take everything you own. We have a scheme. We're going to lock you away and throw away the key." I remained perfectly still. I reached into my purse and hit the record button on my phone. This was it. This was the moment. Beatrice was admitting the truth. It was the drug speaking, but truth serum is truth serum. Beatrice began to move, a disturbing, jerky dance among the crystal glasses and fine china. She was laughing uncontrollably now, tears rolling down her cheeks. "The spiders!" she suddenly screamed, clawing at her neck. "Get them off me! The spiders are devouring my pearls!" She tore the pearl necklace from her neck. The string broke and dozens of pearls spilled onto the table, bouncing into wine glasses and soup bowls. "Get them off!" she shrieked, clawing at her clothes. She tore the sleeve of her Chanel jacket. She was hallucinating. The drug was potent. Leo grabbed her ankles, trying to pull her down. "Stop it, mother. Stop it." Security. The manager was running toward us, followed by two large men in suits. "Get her down. She's ruining the restaurant." Beatrice kicked Leo in the face. Her heel struck his cheekbone, causing blood to flow. "Back off," she roared. "I am the queen. You cannot touch the queen." The security guards didn't hesitate. They seized Beatrice by the arms and dragged her off the table. She struggled and bit, shouting curses that would make a sailor blush. She called the manager a racial slur. She called the security guard a peasant. They hauled her toward the exit, her feet scraping the floor, her expensive shoes slipping off one by one. Leo looked at me, his face a mask of pure fear. He glanced at my glass, still full, then at his mother's empty glass. The realization dawned on him. His eyes widened. "He knew you," he whispered. "You did this." I looked at him, my expression calm, my voice steady. "Did what, Leo?" "I sat here and ate my dinner. Your mother appears to be reacting to something. Maybe she's allergic to the truth." "You poisoned her," he hissed, grabbing my wrist. "Let go of me," I said loudly enough for the manager to hear. "Or I'll add assault to the charges the police will be interested in tonight." Leo released me. The manager glared at us. "Get out," he said, "all of you now, and you're paying for the damage." We exited to the parking lot. It was chaos. Beatrice was leaning against Leo's Bentley, vomiting violently onto the pavement. Chloe was crying, trying to wipe sauce off her dress. A crowd had gathered, filming with their phones. "Call an ambulance," I said, pulling out my phone. "No," Leo shouted. "No police, no ambulance, we're taking her home. She just drank too much. She's hallucinating about spiders." "Leo," I said, dialing 911, "that's not alcohol. She needs a hospital and a toxicology test." Leo lunged for my phone. "Don't call them." I stepped back. The call was already connecting. "Hello? Yes, I have a medical emergency at Bacchanalia. My mother-in-law has ingested a substance and is experiencing a psychotic episode. She's violent. Yes, please send help immediately." Leo stared at me with hatred. He knew what a toxicology test would reveal. "Please send help right away," I urged. Leo fixed me with a look full of venom. He was fully aware of what the toxicology report would uncover. He knew it would expose the drug he had purchased, the very drug he slipped into the glass. "Why are you doing this?" he asked, his voice shaking. I smirked. "Because, Leo, I'm a devoted daughter-in-law, and family looks out for family, don't they?" The siren screamed in the distance, drawing nearer. Beatrice was now on the ground, trembling and crying about spiders. Chloe sat on the curb, heartbroken, while Leo appeared as a man witnessing his world collapse. This was only the beginning. The ambulance arrived, its flashing red and blue lights cutting through the darkness, lighting up the chaos of what should have been a peaceful anniversary dinner. Paramedics hurried toward Beatrice, now curled into a fetal position on the pavement, mumbling about demons and pearls. Leo tried to intervene. "She's fine," he stuttered, wiping sweat from his brow. "She just had a bad reaction to some medicine. We can take her home. We have a private doctor." One paramedic, a tall woman with a serious demeanor, pushed him aside. "Sir, she's convulsing and hallucinating. We're taking her to Grady Memorial. That's protocol." Leo looked horrified. That was the public hospital, the trauma center, the place for the uninsured. The police presence was constant there, and drug testing was routine upon admission. "No, take her to Emory or Piedmont. We have insurance. We have the means." "We take patients to the nearest level 1 trauma center," the paramedic said, lifting Beatrice onto the stretcher. "Move aside, sir, or you'll be arrested for obstruction." Defeated, Leo stepped back. He glanced at me with pleading eyes for the first time. "Scarlett, tell them to take her somewhere private. We can fix this." I looked at him, the man who had tried to drug me to make me appear insane so he could steal my money and my honor. I adjusted my silk shawl. "The paramedics know what's best, Leo. We must comply with the law." I climbed into the ambulance beside Beatrice, not out of care for her, but to make sure the custody chain of her blood sample stayed intact, and "Only family allowed," the paramedic said. "I'm her daughter-in-law," I replied, voice quivering with feigned concern. "I'm her medical proxy. My husband is too distraught to come." Leo watched the door shut, left standing in the parking lot with a distraught Chloe, and a bill for thousands in restaurant damages. As the ambulance sped off, I looked down at Beatrice. She was restrained, her eyes rolling back. "You really should have treated me better, Beatrice," I murmured. The night dragged on. Police took my statement. I played the part of the shocked wife flawlessly. Shed a few tears. Expressed disbelief that my husband could be involved. I handed over the video I recorded of Beatrice's breakdown. "This will serve as evidence," the officer said. "Thank you, ma'am. You may have saved her life by getting her here so quickly." I nodded. I just did what anyone would. By 4 a.m., Beatrice was stable but sedated. Leo had been released pending further inquiry, though his passport was confiscated. I stepped out of the hospital into the cool night air. My phone vibrated. A message from Chloe. "We need to talk. I know what you did." I smiled. Chloe was next, but first I had to get home. I needed to crack Leo's safe. "You did it," I smiled. Chloe was up next, but first I had to get home. I needed to crack Leo's safe. I had to locate the cash he'd stolen and gear up for the battle ahead. I flagged down a cab to Buckhead and commanded, "Step on it." As the city lights streaked by, an unexpected calm settled over me. The disguise was gone, the game was underway, and for the first time in 5 years, I held all the leverage. They wanted a spectacle. I was ready to deliver a blockbuster. But the insurance scam, the mortgage fraud, and Chloe's little secret still needed handling. I closed my eyes and began strategizing. The devil's toast was just the appetizer. The main event would be their utter downfall, and I was ravenous. The harsh, fluorescent bulbs of Grady Memorial's emergency room buzzed relentlessly, drilling into my head. It was a cold, clinical contrast to the warm amber glow of the restaurant we'd just escaped. No crystal chandeliers, no velvet drapes, and certainly no mercy here. The air reeked of antiseptic floor polish and the metallic scent of dried blood. I sat on a rigid plastic chair in the corridor, my emerald silk gown spilling over like a spilled cocktail, catching the weary gazes of nurses and patients awaiting attention. I paid no mind. My entire focus was fixed on Trauma Room 3's closed door, where my mother-in-law, Beatrice, lay strapped to a stretcher, screaming about spiders devouring her pearls. Leo paced before me, his Italian leather loafers squeaking against the linoleum floor. He'd shed his jacket, and sweat had soaked through his dress shirt. He resembled a man watching a fragile dam give way, desperately trying to hold back the flood with his bare hands. His eyes darted toward me, flickering with fear and calculation. He was wondering how much I knew, whether I'd spotted the powder, why I remained so composed. I glanced at my watch. It was 2 a.m. The adrenaline that had propelled me through the switch at the restaurant was now curdling into cold, biting rage. I observed him pacing. I knew exactly what raced through his mind, calculating bribes, lawyers' fees, and the cost of keeping quiet. The trauma room door swung open, and a tired-looking doctor emerged. Young dark circles under his eyes, but his demeanor was serious and commanding. He carried a clipboard. Leo ceased pacing and hurried over. "Doctor, how is she?" Leo asked, voice unnaturally high. "Is it food poisoning? It has to be food poisoning. The duck at that place was suspicious. We'll sue them." The doctor raised a hand to hold him. "Mr. Washington, your mother is stable but deeply sedated. We administered a strong benzodiazepine to manage her psychosis. However, we have the toxicology results." I rose slowly and stepped beside Leo, eager to witness his reaction when reality hit. "It's not food poisoning," the doctor said quietly. "We detected a significant level of scopolamine in her bloodstream." Leo recoiled as if struck. "Scopolamine," the doctor explained, looking between us. "Also known as devil's breath. It's a deliriant. In high doses, it renders the victim highly suggestible, compliant, and often induces vivid, terrifying hallucinations. It's not something you catch from bad duck, Mr. Washington." Background: the victim is highly impressionable, obedient, and frequently suffers from vivid, terrifying hallucinations. "This isn't something you catch from a bad duck, Mr. Washington. It's a substance given intentionally, often with malicious motives." The pause that followed was suffocating, heavy enough to break bones. I glanced at Leo. His face was pale, his mouth slightly agape. He fully understood what scopolamine was. He had purchased it. He had carried it in his pocket, and he had planned to use it on me. The submission, the surrender of free will. He didn't want to kill me. He wanted to dominate me. He wanted me to sign documents. He wanted me to hand over the keys to my empire while I smiled and nodded, a puppet in a silk gown. "That's impossible," Leo stuttered, wiping sweat from his brow with the back of his hand. "My mother would never take drugs. Someone must have slipped something into her drink at the bar. This city is dangerous. We were targeted." The doctor squinted. "Regardless, this has become a police issue. We have secured the samples and the report will be submitted to the investigators. Expect them to contact you again." I stepped forward, my tone calm and firm. "Thank you, doctor. Please do whatever is necessary to protect my mother-in-law. We want the truth, no matter how harsh it may be." The doctor acknowledged me with a nod, appreciating the cooperation, then turned to return to the nurse's station. Leo watched him leave, his hands clenched tightly at his sides. Then he faced me, his eyes wild. "You," he hissed, "you did this. You swapped the glasses." I raised an eyebrow. "I have no clue what you're talking about, Leo. I just wanted to enjoy our anniversary. It's not my fault your mother can't handle her drinks or whatever else she's into." He looked like he might strike me, but the presence of a security guard down the hall restrained him. He took a deep breath, smoothing his hair. "Stay here," he commanded. "I need to fix this." He strode toward the nurse's station, where a middle-aged nurse was entering data into a computer. I watched him carefully. I knew Leo. He believed money could solve everything. He thought everyone had a price. I waited a moment, then trailed behind him, sticking close to the wall. My steps silent. I saw him lean over the tall counter, flashing that smooth real estate grin that had fooled me 5 years ago. He whispered in a low, confidential tone, but I was close enough. I had spent years eavesdropping in boardrooms, catching executives in private lies. "Excuse me, miss," Leo said. "There's been a terrible error with the paperwork. My mother, she's a very respected figure in the church. This diagnosis, this drug allegation, would ruin her reputation. It would destroy her." The nurse looked up, her expression unreadable. "The chart matches the lab results, sir. I cannot alter the lab findings." Leo pulled out his wallet, revealing a thick wad of cash. I could see the edges of $100 bills. He slid his hand along the counter, covering the money with his palm. "I'm not asking you to change the lab results," he whispered. "I'm just asking for the official discharge summary to be a bit more vague. Metabolic imbalance, severe dehydration, something that preserves her dignity. No need for the police to get involved in a family matter. This is for your trouble, for your discretion." The nurse glanced from the money to Leo, hesitating. That hesitation was all Leo needed. He pushed the cash forward. It was a significant amount. Enough for a car payment, enough for rent. That was my moment. I stepped out of the shadows, my heels clicking sharply against the floor. I didn't raise my voice. This is my time. I emerged from the shadows, my heels tapping crisply against the floor. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cause a scene. I approached the counter and set my leather card holder down beside Leo's hand. It landed with a firm, commanding thud. I opened it. My credentials shimmered under the fluorescent lighting. Certified forensic accountant, State Board of Fraud Examiners. "Good evening," I said, my tone calm and professional. "I'm Scarlett Washington. I'm the patient's daughter-in-law and a federally certified auditor specializing in institutional fraud." The nurse's eyes widened. She withdrew her hand from the counter as if it burned. Leo froze, his hand still concealing the bribe. I held the nurse's gaze. "I understand my husband is under immense pressure. He's not thinking clearly, but I am. If that chart is tampered with in any way, if a single decimal point is altered, or if the diagnosis is changed from scopolamine to dehydration, I will personally initiate an audit of this entire department. I will subpoena every log, every email, and every bank account linked to the staff on duty tonight. I will ensure you not only lose your license, but also face prosecution for interfering with medical evidence in a criminal investigation." I paused, letting my warning sink in. "Are we clear?" The nurse looked terrified and pushed her chair back. I won't accept that. I'm just entering the data exactly as the doctor instructed. Scopolamine is in the record. It's locked." "Good," I said, pulling out my phone. "I'd like a copy of that face sheet and the toxicology report immediately for my records. As the primary insured party on her policy, I have the right to them." The nurse hurried to print the documents. She handed them over with trembling hands. I took them, quickly scanning to confirm the drug name was clearly listed, then snapped high-resolution photos of each page, uploading them straight to my secure cloud storage. I turned to Leo. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. His hand remained on the counter, shielding the cash. "You can put that away, Leo," I said. "We're finished here." He shoved the money back into his pocket, his motion stiff and awkward. He looked at me with a mix of resentment and awe. He had never seen me in action. Only the wife who cooked dinner and nodded at his stories. Never the woman who dismantled CEOs before breakfast. "We need to talk," he said, his voice rough. "Not here," I replied. "I'm going to sit with your mother. You look like you need to make a call." He glared, then spun around and stormed down the hallway toward the family restrooms. I watched him go, knowing he wasn't heading to wash his face. He was calling the one person who knew the plan, his attorney. I waited until he disappeared around the corner, then moved. I slipped off my heels, holding them in my hand to move silently. I followed him down the long, deserted corridor. He opened the door to the large, single-occupancy family restroom. I heard the lock click. The restroom sat beside a janitor's closet and a line of vending machines. A small alcove between the restroom door and the water fountain created a blind spot, hidden by a large potted plant. I slipped into the alcove, pressing my back against the cold wall. The restroom door was solid, but the ventilation gap at the bottom was wide and the hospital was quiet at this hour. I heard Leo pacing inside. The ventilation gap near the floor was broad and the hospital was hushed at this late hour. I could hear Leo pacing inside. The sound of his phone dialing came through, followed by his voice reverberating softly against the tiled walls. "Answer, answer, answer," he muttered under his breath. Then a relieved sigh. "Arthur, it's me. Wake up. We've got a huge problem." I held my breath, clutching my phone to my chest with the voice memo app recording. "Plan A failed," Leo said, his tone dropping to a sharp whisper. "She didn't drink it. Somehow she swapped the glasses. My mother drank it instead." "Yes, Beatrice is in the emergency room. She's unstable. The police are involved. They discovered the scopolamine." He paused, listening intently. "No, Arthur, you don't get it." "Scarlett's aware," she confronted the nurse. "She threatened to trigger an audit. She has copies of the medical files. She's not the naive girl from the projects we assumed. She's dangerous." I closed my eyes as a tear escaped. He underestimated me. He thought I was an easy target. "No," Leo snapped. "We can't afford to wait. The interest payments on the Bitcoin loans are due next week. If I can't access her accounts, I'm finished. Literally dead. Those loan sharks don't joke around. I need that conservatorship. Conservatorship. The word hung in the air like a knife. That was the scheme. Drug me. Make me appear mentally unstable in public, get me committed, then petition the court to control my assets because I'm supposedly unfit. It's the same tactic they use on celebrities and aging stars, and he planned to use it on me. We have to change course, Leo said, desperation creeping into his voice. I need you to draft a petition for an emergency psychiatric evaluation. We'll claim she's been acting irrationally for weeks. Paranoia, mood swings. We'll say she poisoned my mother in a jealous rage. Yes, that's the approach. She tried to poison Beatrice because she believes Beatrice hates her. We'll portray her as a danger to herself and others. I need that judge's approval for a temporary hold by Monday morning. He paused again. Yes, I can get witnesses. Chloe will say whatever I tell her. My mother will support me once she's lucid. We just need to isolate Scarlett. Keep her away from her files. Keep her away from her money. Once she's institutionalized, no one will listen to her. She'll just be another crazy black woman, rambling about conspiracies. A coal fire sparked in my gut. Another crazy black woman. That was his gamble, that the system would see my race and gender and disregard my qualifications and reality. He was exploiting bias, weaponizing the very system I dedicated myself to protect. Do it, Arthur, Leo said. File the paperwork first thing in the morning. I'll handle her tonight. I'll get her home. I'll make sure she doesn't leave my side. By Monday, she'll be in a padded cell and I'll have power of attorney. He ended the call. I heard water running. He was splashing his face, gathering himself, preparing to perform as the loving, concerned husband once more. I stopped the recording, saved the file, emailed it to myself, my lawyer, and a secure backup. Then I slipped my shoes back on, walked to the waiting area and sat down, crossing my legs, smoothed my dress, checked my makeup and my compact. I looked flawless. I looked composed. I looked like a woman ready for battle. When Leo returned, he seemed calmer. He had a plan. He believed he was in control. Ready to go? He asked softly. The doctor says Mom will sleep for hours. We should head home and rest. Are you ready to leave? He murmured gently. The doctor said Mom will be asleep for hours. We should head home and get some rest. We can return in the morning. I glanced at him and smiled, the kind of smile a predator gives when spotting a wounded prey. Naturally, darling, I replied. Let's go home. I have plenty to attend to. He extended his arm, and I took it. His skin was damp and clammy. We stepped out of the hospital into the sticky Atlanta night air. He believed he was guiding me into captivity. Little did he realize he was walking into his own downfall. The proof tucked in my pocket weighed heavily, like a loaded firearm. Monday was just 2 days away. A lot can change in 2 days, and I intended to ensure that by Monday morning, the only one behind bars would be him. The Bentley pulled up to the circular driveway of our Buckhead mansion. The house stood dark and imposing, a vast structure of limestone and glass, purchased through my sweat and sharp intellect. It was meant to be my refuge. Now it resembled a tomb. Leo shifted the car into park and faced me. His expression was concerned, but the strain was evident. The stress of the evening, the looming financial ruin he tried to conceal, and the constant effort to maintain his falsehoods were wearing him down. You need to rest, Scarlett, he said, reaching out to tuck a loose strand of hair behind my ear. His touch made me shiver, but I didn't pull away. I leaned into it. I needed him to believe I was broken. I needed him to think the trauma of witnessing his mother's psychosis had left me fragile and obedient. I'm exhausted, Leo, I whispered, letting my eyelids fall. I just want to sleep. I want to erase tonight from my memory. He nodded, relief softening his features. Go upstairs. Take one of those sleeping pills Dr. Arrington gave you for your anxiety. Get some rest. I have to step out for about an hour. I'm meeting with Arthur to manage the fallout for Mom's reputation. We have to get ahead of the media before morning. It was a lie. Naturally, he was meeting Arthur to finalize the documents to have me institutionalized. He needed to sign the affidavit while I was unconscious. All right, I said quietly, don't be long. I don't want to be alone. I watched him drive off, his taillights disappearing into the sultry Atlanta night. As soon as the gate clicked shut, I dropped the facade. The weariness vanished, replaced by a cold, razor-sharp focus that made me the top forensic accountant in the state. I didn't head upstairs to the master bedroom. I went straight to his study. The study was Leo's realm. Dark mahogany paneling surrounded me, with the scent of cedar and expensive cigars he smoked to appear powerful. It was the nerve center of his delusions. I locked the door behind me and switched on the desk lamp. I didn't need to rifle through the drawers. I knew Leo well. Arrogant, yes, but not careless. The real secrets were inside the wall safe, hidden behind the large oil portrait of himself hanging above the fireplace. I moved the painting aside. The safe was a heavy-duty digital model top of the line. I stared at the keypad. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. Most people use dates as passwords: birthdays, anniversaries, graduation days. It's human nature to tie our secrets to what we cherish. I entered our anniversary June 10th. The light blinked red. Error. I tried his birthday. Error. I tried his mother's birthday. Error. I paused, closed my eyes, and focused on the man I had married. Who did he truly love? Who did he hold above all others? It wasn't me. It wasn't his mother. It wasn't even himself, not really. Love? Who did he cherish above all others? It wasn't me. It wasn't his mother. Not even himself, at least, not truly. It was the individual who fueled his darkest urges, the one who conspired alongside him. I entered 4 numbers. In 0824, August 24th, Chloe's birthday, the signal shifted to green. The heavy metal bolts retracted with a mechanical clang that echoed like a gunshot in the quiet house. I pushed the door open. My heart hammered against my chest, but my hands remained steady. Inside were piles of cash, a few timepieces, and a thick leather binder. I ignored the money. Cash is fleeting. Paper evidence in drawers. I grabbed the binder and brought it to the desk. As I opened it, the tale of my husband's treachery unfolded in stark black and white. The first paper was a life insurance policy. It had been issued by a prominent insurer just 2 months prior. The coverage amounted to $5 million. The insured was Scarlett Washington, the primary beneficiary, Leo Washington. I traced my finger along the clauses. It was a standard policy, but with an addendum: double payout for accidental death, and a clause allowing accelerated disbursement in the event of permanent cognitive impairment. Impairment, that was the scopolamine. He didn't want me dead. He wanted me incapacitated. He wanted me confined to a care facility, drooling and incoherent, so he could claim the policy to wipe out his debts while playing the mournful, devoted husband. It was monstrous, calculated, and it bore a forged signature mine, so convincing it would deceive anyone but me. I snapped a photo and turned the page. The next paper was a mortgage statement. My breath hitched. I had paid off this house 3 years ago. I signed the check myself. It was one of my proudest achievements. But the document before me told another story. It was a statement for a home equity line of credit, a HELOC. It had been taken out 18 months earlier. The principal was $800,000. The current balance, $850,000. He hadn't made a payment in 4 months. The house, my house, was on the brink of foreclosure. He had forged my signature again. He had leveraged the roof over our heads to fund what? I flipped through the pages frantically until I found the investment prospectus. Apex Coin, a cryptocurrency startup registered in the Cayman Islands. It was a Ponzi scheme. I recognized it immediately. I had audited a company last year caught in the same scam. Leo had poured nearly $1 million of stolen equity into a digital abyss. The money was gone, vanished. He was broke. Worse than broke. Deep underwater with predators closing in. That explained the desperation. That explained why he couldn't wait for a divorce settlement. He needed cash and he needed it fast. I took more photos. My hands trembled now, not from fear, but from a rage so intense it felt like ice running through my veins. He had stolen my security. He had stolen my home. I turned to the back of the binder. There was a section labeled expenses. It was a stack of bank statements from a shell company called MW Holdings. I recognized the name. It was Leo's real estate holding entity. I scanned the outgoing transfers, monthly payments of $5,000. The recipient, C. Miller. Consulting Chloe Miller $5,000 every month for the past 2 years. While he told me the market was struggling, while he asked me to cover the utility bills because his cash flow was tight, he was funneling $60,000 a year to his sister-in-law. To cover the utility bills when his finances were strained, he was funneling $60,000 annually to his sister-in-law. Then I came across the credit card statements, the American Express Centurion card he claimed he had canceled. The expenses were staggering. The Four Seasons in Miami, Cartier, Louis Vuitton, a cosmetic surgery clinic in Buckhead, the very same Dr. Chloe had recommended to me at dinner. He funded her rhinoplasty, her chin augmentation, the breasts she flaunted at family barbecues. He molded her. He purchased her. I stared at the figures. Numbers don't deceive. People do. People profess love. They claim they're building a future with you, but numbers reveal the true story of where the heart really lies. And Leo's heart resided in a ledger filled with greed and desire that had nothing to do with me. A tear rolled down my cheek. I wiped it away with frustration. There was no time to grieve the marriage. I needed to bury it. I pulled a USB drive from my pocket. I always carried one. A forensic accountant is never off duty. I plugged it into his laptop on the desk. I guessed the password on the first try. Chloe. Pathetic. I cloned the hard drive, emails, chat logs, financial software, backups. I took everything. I discovered a folder titled The Project. I opened it. It wasn't a real estate development. It was a timeline. Phase 1, isolation. Notes on how he had gradually cut me off from my friends over the past year. Phase 2, destabilization, gaslighting strategies, moving my keys, hiding my documents, making me question my memory. Phase 3, the event, the anniversary dinner. Phase 4, conservatorship. It was a blueprint for my downfall. He treated dismantling my life like a project management task. I ejected the drive and slipped it into my bra. I returned the binder to the safe. I wiped my fingerprints from the desk, keyboard, and safe door. I swung the painting back into place. I stood in the center of the room and surveyed it. This house was no longer a home. It was a crime scene, and I was the lead detective. I checked the time. He'd been gone for 45 minutes. He'd be back soon. I needed to be upstairs. I needed to play the sleeping victim. But as I turned to leave, something caught my eye in the corner of the desk that I'd missed. A small velvet box, the kind used for jewelry. I opened it. Inside was a dazzling diamond tennis bracelet, easily 10 carats. And a note tucked beneath the velvet cushion. To Chloe, for being my partner in crime. Soon, baby. Soon we will have it all. M. He'd bought her a trophy with my money to celebrate my commitment to a mental institution. I snapped the box shut and slipped it into my pocket. This would be useful. I went upstairs to the bedroom. I changed out of my gown and into silk pajamas. I tousled the bed sheets to look like I'd been restless. I placed a bottle of sleeping pills on the nightstand, took one out, and flushed it down the toilet so the count would be correct if he checked. Then I lay down in the dark, listening to the quiet of the house. I thought about the man I'd married 5 years ago. I thought about the vows we exchanged for better or worse, in sickness and in health. He'd broken every single one. He'd tried to make me sick to make himself rich. I heard the garage door open, the rumble of the Bentley engine. He was back. I closed my eyes and slowed my breathing. I heard his heavy footsteps on the stairs. I heard the bedroom door creak open. He walked to the side of the bed. Heavy footsteps resonated on the staircase. I heard the bedroom door groan open. He approached the bedside. I sensed his presence looming over me. The pungent aroma of stale cigar smoke and his anxious perspiration filled the air. He lingered silently, simply observing. "Sleep well, Scarlett," he murmured. "Relish your final night of liberty." Then he moved into the bathroom and shut the door behind him. In the darkness, I opened my eyes. "No, Leo," I thought. "You enjoy yours." I possessed the proof. I had the reason. I held the means. But my mission wasn't complete. I had to dismantle his network first. I had to cripple this creature's limbs before targeting the head. Chloe was the vulnerable point. She was avaricious. She was self-absorbed, and she was reckless. She was the one who accepted the bribe. She was the one who betrayed her husband with his brother. And tomorrow, she would blindly step into my snare. I turned over and gazed at the moon through the window. It appeared sharp and chilling like a scythe. Tomorrow, I would feign the bewildered, fragile wife one last time. Yet beneath the silk pajamas, I wore armor, and when Chloe came to scavenge the ruins of my life, she would discover this carcass still had bite. The morning sunlight filtered through the silk curtains of the master bedroom, yet it brought no warmth. I lay in bed, absorbing the silence of the house. Leo had left early. He claimed pressing matters at the office, but I knew he was meeting with his attorneys to finalize my institutionalization. He believed I was upstairs, drugged into oblivion. He thought I was shattered. I checked my phone. A message from Chloe arrived 30 minutes earlier. "I'm coming over to check on you, sweetie. Bringing soup." I smiled at the ceiling. Soup? The oldest Southern ploy. Bring a casserole or soup as a pretext to enter the home. Chloe wasn't coming to console me. She was coming because Leo sent her. He needed my American Express Centurion card, the black card. It was my sole source of unlimited credit, and he knew the PIN because I once trusted him. He needed it to cover the interest on his loans before the sharks came for his knees. I rose and dressed. I chose a simple white lounge set. It made me appear pale and fragile. I brushed my hair but left it loose. I wanted to look like a woman barely holding herself together. I went downstairs and placed my purse on the kitchen island. I left the clasp undone. The edge of the black titanium card was just visible. Then I waited. 10 minutes later, the doorbell chimed. I inhaled deeply and opened the door. Chloe stood there, clutching a Tupperware container. She wore oversized sunglasses and a designer tracksuit more costly than my first car. She looked worn, her skin blotchy. The stress of last night had aged even her expensive treatments. "Scarlett," she said, her voice thick with feigned concern. "Oh my God, look at you. You seem exhausted." I stepped back to let her in. "I'm fine, Chloe. Just confused. Everything feels hazy." She walked into the kitchen and placed the soup down. "I'm sure it does. Leo told me everything. He's so worried about you. He thinks you might be unraveling." I leaned against the counter, wrapping my arms around myself. "Maybe I am. I don't remember a thing from last night. Only Beatrice screaming." Chloe winced. "Yeah, well, Beatrice is stable now. Leo is handling it all. He sent me to make sure you're eating and to check if you need anything." "Leo is managing everything. He sent me over to make sure you're eating and to check if you need anything." She scanned the room, her gaze landing on my handbag. I caught a flicker of greed in her eyes, hungry and desperate. "I need some tea," I said, massaging my temples. "My head is throbbing. Do we have any chamomile?" "I think it's in the pantry," Chloe replied, ever helpful. "Why don't you go look? I'll warm up this soup for you." I nodded and stepped into the walk-in pantry. I shut the door but didn't latch it, leaving a small gap just wide enough to peek through. As soon as I was out of sight, Chloe moved, not toward the stove, but directly to the island. Her hand trembled as she reached into my purse. First, she pulled out her phone and snapped a photo of something inside, probably to prove to Leo she'd found it. Then her fingers closed around the black card. I flung the pantry door open. It crashed against the wall with a thunderous bang. Chloe jumped and dropped the card. It clattered onto the marble countertop. I stepped out, my expression free of the confusion I'd pretended moments before. "Looking for something, Chloe?" I asked. She stammered, retreating. I was looking for a tissue. I thought you had some in your bag." "A tissue?" I repeated, picking up the black card. "You needed a tissue made of titanium." "Scarlett, please," she said, her voice rising. "Leo asked me to get it. He said you needed him to cover the hospital bills for Beatrice. He said you weren't in a state to handle the finances." I laughed, a cold, bitter sound. "The hospital bills, is that what he told you? Or did he mention he has to pay off the bookies before they break his legs? Or maybe he needs to make the lease payment on that Porsche he drives. Or perhaps he has to settle with Dr. Stein for your neck surgery." Chloe froze, her face drained of color. "What are you talking about?" I circled the island, closing the distance between us. "I know, Chloe. I know everything. I know about the money. I know about the plastic surgery. I know about the monthly transfers to Miller Consulting." She shook her head, tears welling up. "That's not true. I do consulting work for him. I help with interior design on his flip properties." "Interior design?" I echoed. "Is that what we're calling it now? Is that what you were doing at the Fontainebleau Hotel in Miami last month, designing interiors?" She stopped breathing. The room went silent. I pulled a folded piece of paper from my pocket, a high-resolution printout. I unfolded it and slammed it onto the counter beside the soup. It was a photo from the hotel security footage. A friend in Miami owed me a favor. The image was crystal clear. It showed Leo and Chloe standing at the check-in desk. His hand rested on the small of her back. Her hand lay on his chest. They were looking at each other with a desire that had nothing to do with real estate. Chloe stared at the photo, making a faint choking sound. I also have the room service receipts, I said. Champagne, oysters, massage charges. It was a very expensive weekend, Chloe, especially since you told your husband you were visiting your sick aunt in Tallahassee. Chloe looked up at me, terror etched on her face. Please, she whispered. Please, Scarlett, if David sees this, he'll kill me. He'll take the kids. He'll leave me with nothing. I understand, I said. David is a good man. He works hard. He loves you. And yet you're sleeping with his brother. His brother who's stealing from his wife to fund your lifestyle. He cares for you deeply. Yet you're involved with his brother who's embezzling from his wife to support your extravagant habits. I leaned in closer. You're nothing but a leech, Chloe. You and Leo are made for each other. Two hollow, damaged souls attempting to fill the emptiness with money you never earned. Tears welled up in her eyes. I'm sorry. It just happened. Leo makes me feel valued. He listens to me. He buys your affection, I corrected her. He purchases your loyalty. He pays for your silence. He owns your body. But the funds have been cut off, Chloe. I froze the accounts this morning. That card you tried to swipe, it's now just a useless piece of plastic. I reported it stolen an hour ago. She glanced at the card on the counter, then back at me. What are you going to do? Are you going to tell David? I picked up the photo and tapped it against my chin, feigning thoughtfulness. That depends on you. What do you mean? I need an ally, I said, wielding the word like a weapon. I'm utterly alone in this vast house. My husband is trying to have me declare mentally unstable. My mother-in-law is hospitalized. I need someone in my corner. I'll do anything, Chloe said, desperation in her voice, anything. Just don't tell David. Good. I said, here's the deal. You'll be my eyes and ears. Leo trusts you. He believes you're his partner in crime. You'll keep it that way. She nodded rapidly, wiping her nose. Okay, I can handle that. Every time he makes a move, I want to know. I said, if he consults a lawyer, I want to know. If he transfers money, I want to know. If he plans to plant drugs in my car or hire a doctor to lie in court, I want to know before he hangs up. I understand, she said. And one more thing, I added. What? I reached into my pocket again. I pulled out the velvet box I had found in the study. I opened it. The diamond tennis bracelet gleamed in the morning light. Chloe gasped, her hand covering her mouth. It's stunning. It is, I agreed. 10 carats. Flawless. He bought it yesterday. She reached for it, entranced. For me? I snapped the box shut. Yes, for you. A trophy for helping him ruin me. She looked at me, confusion clouding her eyes. I'm keeping this, I said, slipping the box back into my pocket. You can have it when this is done, if you do your part, if you help me bury him. But he loves me, she whispered. I laughed again. He doesn't love you, Chloe. He loves that you're vulnerable. He loves that you're easily bought. He loves that you make him feel important when he's really just a crook. If he loved you, he'd leave me. He hasn't left because he needs my money, and now he no longer has it. I picked up the photo from the counter and held it over the open flame of the gas stove. I'm keeping a digital copy, I said, and if you lie to me, miss a check-in, or warn him, I will email it to David. I will send it to your parents. I will forward it to every member of the church choir. Do you understand? Yes, she sobbed. Yes, I understand. Good. Now take your soup and leave my house. Tell Leo I was sleeping. Tell him you couldn't find the purse. Tell him I looked weak and pathetic. She nodded, retreating toward the door. She appeared small and defeated. The arrogance was gone. Oh, and Chloe, I called as she reached the door. She turned back, tears streaming down her cheeks. If you ever touch my things again, I won't just destroy your marriage. I'll sue you for theft. And unlike Leo, I have the funds to hire the best lawyers in the state. She fled. I heard her car start in the driveway and speed away. Employ the finest attorneys in the state. She bolted. I heard her car roar to life in the driveway, then speed away. I remained alone in the kitchen. My heart raced, yet my hand stayed calm. I had transformed his closest confidant into his greatest weakness. I now had an informant within enemy lines. My eyes flicked to the stove. I switched off the burner. I didn't destroy the photograph. Instead, I folded it neatly and slipped it back into my pocket. Leverage was too valuable to waste. I moved to the fridge and poured a glass of cold water. My throat was parched. The stakes were rising. Leo would arrive soon, furious that Chloe had failed, desperate. I had to be prepared. I needed to play the perfect victim just a bit longer. Upstairs, I changed into pajamas, messed up the bed, lay down, and closed my eyes. Before sleep claimed me, I sent a message to my lawyer. Phase 2 is done. The rat is trapped. Prepare the divorce papers. I want him served at church on Sunday. I smiled into my pillow. Sunday would truly be a sacred day. The air in the private hospital room was heavy with the scent of stale blooms and pricey perfume, trying to mask the sharp disinfectant odor beneath. It was Friday morning. Beatrice had been awake for 2 hours. I sat in the corner chair, clutching my purse tightly, looking like someone who hadn't slept in days, which was the truth. I hadn't slept. I'd been plotting. Beatrice sat upright in bed, donned in a silk robe Leo had brought from home. She refused to wear the hospital gown. Her hair was covered with a scarf, but her face was exposed, worn and pale. The makeup was gone, revealing the ghostly complexion of someone who'd been through hell and back. She held an iPad, her hands trembling. On the screen, a video played on repeat. It wasn't just on my phone anymore. It had spread to TikTok, Instagram, and the local news sites. I watched her watch herself. In the footage, she was kicking over a platter of duck, screaming about spiders, and hurling insults at Chloe so harsh they'd be banned from decent company for years. Views ticked upward, 2 million, 3 million. The caption read, "The Real Housewives of Atlanta Unfiltered." Beatrice let out a sound, a mix of sob and scream. She flung the iPad across the room. It slammed against the wall and slid to the floor. "You did this!" she hissed, pointing a shaking finger at me. "You filmed it, you posted it, you destroyed me." I widened my eyes in mock surprise. "Beatrice, I only recorded it so the doctors would understand what was happening to help save you. I have no idea how it got online. Maybe a waiter grabbed it. Everyone had their phones out." "Liar," she rasped, her voice rough from the breathing tube they'd removed hours before. "You did this. You did it out of jealousy. Jealous of my status. Jealous of my son. Jealous because you'll never be one of us." Leo emerged from the bathroom, fresh from a shower and dressed in a new suit. He looked like a man ready to close a deal. He approached the bed and placed a hand on his mother's shoulder. "Calm down, Mother," he said gently. "Getting worked up won't help. We know what happened." Then he turned to me, his gaze cold and sharp. "We know what you did, Scarlett. We know you drugged the drink." I stared back, stunned by such boldness. "We're aware of what you did, Scarlett. We know you slipped something into the drink." I met his gaze, taken aback by his audacity. He was attempting to blame me for the crime he had committed. "I have no idea what you mean," I replied, my voice wavering just enough to convey uncertainty. "Leo, you witnessed her condition. She was hallucinating. The doctor confirmed it was scopolamine." "Where would I even get scopolamine?" Leo exhaled deeply, as if dealing patiently with a frantic child. "Don't underestimate our intelligence, Scarlett. We discovered the search history on your laptop. We found the receipt in your car. You ordered it online. You've been plotting this for weeks. Your goal was to disgrace Mother. You wanted to make her appear incapable so you could take control of the charity board." Such a ridiculous accusation. The charity board. As if I cared about their social climbing schemes. But it was the narrative they wanted. The envious daughter-in-law, the outsider attempting to topple the family matriarch. "That's not true," I whispered, tears welling up. "I love Beatrice. I would never harm her." Beatrice sneered. "Love? You don't understand the word. You're a leech. You married my son for his money, and now you're trying to ruin his mother." Leo perched on the edge of the bed. "Look, Scarlett, we're at a critical point. The police are investigating. The hospital has the toxicology results. They believe it was an attack. They're searching for a suspect." I glanced down at my hands. "And what exactly are you proposing, Leo?" I'm saying we can protect you, he whispered conspiratorially. We can tell the authorities it was an accident. We can claim Beatrice took the wrong medication. We can make this disappear. We can clean up the online presence. We have a PR team ready to frame this as an adverse reaction to a new prescription. I looked up, a flicker of hope appearing. You do that even though you think I did this? We're family, Leo said. Family looks out for family, even when things go wrong. But there's a price, Scarlett. This video, this disgrace, has damaged the family's reputation. It's hurt my standing in the business world. Investors are pulling out. The bank is calling. Here it comes, I thought, the real reason. We need to secure the assets, he continued. We have to show the world the Washington family is united and financially stable. We must prove that despite this incident, we remain strong. He reached into his briefcase beside the bed and produced a thick document wrapped in blue paper. What's this? I asked. It's a transfer of assets, Leo explained. It hands over controlling interest of your accounting firm to the Washington Family Trust. I'm the executor of the trust. I stared at the paper, my firm, my forensic accounting practice, the business I built from scratch, the source of 7-figure annual income, the sole barrier between me and destitution. He wanted it. He aimed to take ownership of the very firm that could uncover his fraud. It was a twisted kind of brilliance. If he controlled the firm, he could bury any evidence of his embezzlement forever. Why? I whispered, my voice trembling. Why do you need my firm? Because it's the only asset with liquid value right now. Beatrice snapped. Leo's real estate is tied up in long-term holdings. My accounts are frozen pending an audit because of this scandal. We need your cash flow to settle debts and pay the PR team. It's the only way to save us, Scarlett. It's the only way to save yourself. Leo uncapped a fountain pen. Context. This is our only chance to save ourselves, Scarlett. Your only chance to save yourself. Leo removed the cap from a fountain pen. He extended it toward me. Sign it, Scarlett. Sign. And we tell the police it was an accident. We tell the world you're a devoted daughter-in-law. Refuse. And we hand over proof that you poisoned her. You'll face 20 years behind bars. Attempted murder. Is that what you want? I glanced at the pen, then at Beatrice, whose eyes locked onto me with a wolf's hunger, then at Leo, confident he had me trapped. He believed I was broken. I let out a sob, a harsh, raw sound of surrender. I buried my face in my hands. I can't go to prison, I cried. I just can't. Then sign the papers, Beatrice ordered. Now. I looked up, tears streaming. All right, I'll do it. I'll hand over the company, everything. Just please don't let them arrest me. Leo grinned, a predatory smile. Good girl. Sign here, here, and initial here. I reached for the pen. My hand hovered. Then I pulled it back. Leo frowned. What are you waiting for? Sign it. I can't sign here, my voice barely a whisper. Why not? Beatrice snapped. Because it doesn't feel right, I confessed. I've wronged this family. I hurt you, Beatrice. I let envy consume me. If I'm going to make amends, if I'm going to offer this gift, I want to do it properly. I want to do it before God. Leo looked puzzled. God? What does God have to do with this? I stood and paced the cramped room. I need to repent, Leo. I need to show everyone I'm truly remorseful. I want to sign these papers at church on Sunday. Sunday? Leo questioned. That's 2 days from now. We need this done immediately. Please, I pleaded, gripping his lapels. Please, Leo. Rumors are already spreading. People are whispering. If we handle this privately, they'll say you coerced me. They'll say you took what isn't yours. But if we do it at church, right after service, in front of everyone, it will seem like a gift, a symbol of unity. It will restore Beatrice's image as the forgiving matriarch. It will restore your image as the family's leader. I turned to Beatrice. Her vanity was her Achilles' heel. Beatrice, picture this. You at the altar, me kneeling before you, handing over my life's work, the pastor blessing us, the whole congregation witnessing your victory. It would be the ultimate vindication. They'd see you as queen and me as servant. Beatrice's eyes sparkled. She pictured the scene, the drama, the spotlight, the power. She adored church pageantry more than scripture. She glanced at Leo. She's right. It would look better. It would silence gossip. It would prove the Washingtons are untouchable. Leo hesitated. He was uneasy about the delay. Loans were due, but he craved a public triumph. He wanted to be seen as the man who redeemed his wayward wife. And he was arrogant. He believed he had me cornered. He thought 2 days wouldn't matter because I was terrified. Fine, Leo agreed. Sunday at Ebenezer Baptist, after the morning service, we'll use the fellowship hall. Invite the deacons. Make it a ceremony. Yes, I said, folding my hands. A ceremony, a testimony. I'll give a speech. I'll tell everyone how good you've been to me, how you saved me. Leo smirked. He put the papers back in his briefcase. You better prepare a good speech, Scarlett. You rescued me. Leo grinned, sliding the documents back into his briefcase. You'd better craft a powerful speech, Scarlett. I want tears. I want them to believe you. I will. I promised. I'll ensure nobody leaves without shedding a tear. Beatrice sank deeper into her pillows, a look of utter triumph on her face. You see, Leo, she said, you simply need to know how to deal with these people. Fear is the only language they comprehend. I gazed at her, imprinting that expression, the arrogance, the disdain. I would remember it when I watched her downfall. I'm heading home now, I stated. I need to prepare. I have to organize the transfer papers with my assistant. I need to pray. Go ahead, Leo said, waving me off. I'll stay here with Mother. Don't even think about escaping, Scarlett. I have your passport, remember? And the house is being watched. Chloe's keeping an eye. I nodded. I know. I'm not going anywhere, Leo. I'm ready to do what must be done. I stepped out of the hospital room, down the lengthy hallway, keeping my gaze low until I reached the elevator. As the doors slid shut, I let my facade fall and wiped away the fake tears from my face. Sunday, 2 days, 48 hours. They wanted a spectacle, a ceremony in the largest church in Atlanta. They planned to parade me before the elite, strip me of my pride and fortune. They thought they were setting the scene for my disgrace. They didn't realize they were scripting their own demise. I pulled out my phone and sent a message to my assistant. Prepare the projector, gather the files and contact the district attorney. Tell him I have a gift for him. Instruct him to be at Ebenezer Baptist on Sunday at noon. Tell him to bring handcuffs. I stepped out of the elevator into the lobby. The sun shone brightly outside, but inside my world was cold and sharp. I had played the victim. I had played the fool. Now it was time to become the executioner. But first, I had to survive the next 48 hours. Leo was desperate. Chloe was unstable. And Beatrice was ruthless. They would be watching. I had to be flawless. I climbed into my car and glanced in the rearview mirror. My eyes were steady, my hands calm. Time to go to church, I murmured. I drove home, rehearsing every line of the speech I would deliver. It would be a testimony, but not the one they expected. I was going to reveal every crime, every lie, every stolen dollar, and I'd broadcast it on the biggest screen in the house. The devil was coming to church on Sunday, and she was behind the wheel of a Mercedes. The clock on the mantelpiece ticked past 9 on Saturday night. The house was silent, but the stillness felt like a held breath before a scream. I sat in the library, darkness enveloping me like a shield. Dressed in black pants and a dark turtleneck, I looked like a cat burglar in my own home. I was waiting. My phone buzzed in my lap. The screen lit up with a single name, Chloe. I answered immediately. Speak. Her voice was a strained whisper, barely audible over the sound of running water. She was hiding in her bathroom again. He's accelerating the timeline. Scarlett, he's panicking. He just got off the phone with Arthur. They're worried the church spectacle won't be enough. They fear you might turn the tables or that Beatrice might say something unpredictable again. I leaned in. What's the plan, Chloe? He wants backup. He's not waiting for the mental health hold. He wants you arrested tonight or early tomorrow on your way to a church. A cold smile curved my lips. Leo was predictable in his desperation. Or early tomorrow morning, on your way to church. A cold smirk played on my lips. Leo's desperation was always so predictable. But how exactly did he expect to pull this off? Drugs, Chloe whispered, her voice trembling as if the words were choking her. He reached out to an old contact, a guy from his past neighborhood. He ordered a shipment, cocaine, a large amount. Enough to land a serious felony charge for distribution. I closed my eyes, letting it all sink in. He planned to plant it, stash it in my car or handbag, then tip off the cops anonymously. He wanted them to storm the church and haul me out in handcuffs. It was crude. It was reckless. But that's exactly the kind of desperate blunder a drowning man makes. "Where's the drop-off?" I asked. "There's a gas station on Martin Luther King Drive, the one with the broken sign. 10:30 tonight. Is he going himself?" "No." Chloe said Leo is too afraid. He's sending Jerome. Jerome, Leo's driver, the man who's been on the payroll for 3 years, the same man who chauffeured me to fancy events and opened doors with a smile. Leo was ready to sacrifice him too. Jerome had a criminal record. If caught with that much narcotics, he'd be locked up for life. Leo didn't care. To him, people were disposable, used once, then thrown away. "Thank you, Chloe," I said. "You've done well. Now go back to bed. Take a sleeping pill if you have to. Don't call Leo. Don't warn him." "If you do, I'll know." "I won't," she promised. "Please, Scarlett, just remember our deal, the bracelet and silence." I ended the call and sat quietly, mulling over the situation like a chess game. Leo fancied himself a grandmaster. He thought he was moving his knight to capture my queen, but he didn't realize his knight was already trapped. I stood and headed to the garage. I didn't take my car. It had a tracker Leo installed 6 months ago, pretending it was for safety. Instead, I grabbed the keys to the old housekeeper's sedan. She was on vacation, and the car sat covered in the back. It was invisible. I drove out of Buckhead, leaving behind manicured lawns and gated estates. The city shifted as I moved south. The streetlights dimmed, potholes deepened. These streets were familiar. Leo forgot I grew up close by. He thought he'd rescued me from the hood. But what he didn't understand was that the hood taught me how to survive predators like him. I pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour diner across from the gas station Chloe described. I parked in the shadows behind a dumpster with a clear line of sight. It was 10:15. I picked up a burner phone I'd bought earlier with cash. I dialed 911. "Emergency 911, what's your emergency?" Lowering my voice, I added a note of fear. "Yes, hello. I'm at the gas station on MLK. Something bad is happening. There's a man here with a gun, arguing with someone in a black SUV. I think they're dealing drugs. Please hurry. I'm scared this could turn violent." I gave them a description of the SUV I knew Jerome would be driving, a black Cadillac Escalade. Leo's backup vehicle. I hung up, removed the battery, and tossed the phone into the dumpster. I waited. At 10:25, the Escalade pulled into the gas station. It stopped at the air pump, away from the store's lights. Jerome sat behind the wheel, looking nervous and constantly checking his mirrors, a skilled driver, but a poor criminal. 2 minutes later, a battered Honda rolled up beside him. A man wearing a hoodie stepped out. A worn-out Honda pulled up beside him just minutes later. A man wearing a hoodie stepped out. He walked over to the Escalade's window. I lifted my camera, a professional DSLR with a long telephoto lens I used for capturing evidence during asset seizures. I fired off a quick series of shots. The handoff, the package sliding through the window, the envelope of cash moving the other way, exactly what I needed. Then the sirens screamed. They came from every angle. The Atlanta Police Department took armed drug calls seriously. 3 squad cars swarmed the parking lot, screeching to a stop and sealing off all exits. Blue and red lights pierced the night. "Hands up, get out of the vehicle," I observed through my lens. Jerome froze in place. The dealer in the hoodie tried to flee but was tackled within steps. Jerome slowly opened his door, stepping out with his hands raised high, fear evident on his face. He knew what was hidden in the car. Officers slammed him against the hood and started searching. It didn't take long before they found the package on the passenger seat, a solid brick of white powder. I zoomed in on Jerome's expression. That was the moment his loyalty cracked, when self-preservation took over. The officer shouted at him. Jerome shook his head at first, then started nodding. He began talking, pointing north toward Buckhead. He was turning on his boss. I lowered the camera and reviewed the photos on the screen. They were sharp, incriminating, but the police report would be even more damaging. I started the engine of the housekeeper's car and backed out slowly, leaving before the area could be cordoned off. I obeyed the speed limit all the way back. My heart thudded steadily against my chest. Back at the estate, the house remained dark. Leo was probably in his study, waiting for the call, waiting for Jerome to confirm the package was safe, waiting for the weapon that would end me. I slipped inside, heading upstairs to the guest room where I had set up my command center. I downloaded the photos and printed them out. 30 minutes later, the study phone rang. I answered from the guest room extension and hit mute. Leo picked up immediately. "Do you have it?" It wasn't Jerome's voice. It was unfamiliar, stern, official. "Mr. Leo Washington?" A pause, hesitation. "Who's this?" "This is Sergeant Miller from the Atlanta Police Department. We have your vehicle, the black Cadillac Escalade, in custody. The driver, Mr. Jerome Davis, has been arrested for felony possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance." Silence, thick and suffocating. "Mr. Washington, are you there?" "Yes." Leo's voice trembled. "Yes, I'm here. I don't know anything about this. Jerome is my driver. If he was involved in something illegal, it was on his own time." "That's not what Mr. Davis says," the sergeant pressed on. "He claims he was running an errand for you. He says you provided the cash and ordered him to that location. He also says he has text messages from you confirming the pickup." I smiled quietly in the dark. "Text messages, Leo? Your arrogance, you really thought you could orchestrate a crime over iMessage." "That's a lie," Leo yelled, voice breaking. "He's lying to save himself. I'm a respected businessman. I'm a deacon at my church. You'll need to come down to the station to make a statement, Mr. Washington, or we can send a car to bring you in." "Make your way to the station to give a statement, Mr. Washington, or we can send a cruiser to pick you up." "No," Leo responded swiftly. "Please don't come here. My mother's ill. My wife is unwell. I'll come by in the morning. I'll bring my attorney." "Do that," the sergeant replied. "Don't leave town, Mr. Washington. We'll be in contact." The call ended abruptly. I carefully set down the receiver. I could hear Leo downstairs. He was ripping apart the study. Glass shattered loudly. I heard him screaming into a pillow or burying his face in his hands, trying to stifle the noise of his world crumbling. He was cornered. Plan A had failed. Plan B had just blown up, linking him to a significant drug case. He had no bargaining chips left, no options except one, the church. He was going all in. He had no choice. Tomorrow's ceremony was his final chance. If he could get me to sign the documents publicly, if he could rally the congregation, he might be able to use the funds to bribe the police or hire an elite defense lawyer. That signature was more vital to him than breath itself. He would be desperate tomorrow, dangerous but reckless. I went to the mirror and studied my reflection. I looked worn out, but my eyes shone brightly. I removed my makeup. I brushed my hair until it gleamed. Tomorrow, I would wear white, the shade of purity, the shade of sacrifice. I would appear like an angel stepping into the lion's den. Leo didn't come upstairs that night. He stayed in the study, drinking and likely destroying documents I had already secured digitally. He didn't realize the police report was already being drafted. He didn't know I had a copy of the dispatch log sent to my encrypted email by a contact at the precinct. I had the poisoning, I had the fraud, and now I had the drug charges. I held the triple threat for a lifetime sentence. I slipped into bed. I needed rest. I needed to be alert. Tomorrow was Sunday, the Lord's Day, and I was ready to deliver fire and brimstone. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in 5 years, my dreams weren't filled with numbers or spreadsheets. I dreamed of a judge's gavel striking down, a booming sound like thunder, a sound like liberation. Ebenezer Baptist Church wasn't merely a place of worship in Atlanta. It was a bastion of influence. To be a member here meant you had arrived. To be a deacon like Leo's father meant you were untouchable. The sanctuary was immense, a vast chamber filled with polished mahogany pews and stained glass windows that transformed the humid Georgia sunlight into a mosaic of reds and golds. On this particular Sunday, every pew was occupied. The air conditioning hummed, but barely offset the warmth of 600 people fanning themselves with church bulletins. They weren't just here for the sermon. They were here for the spectacle. I stood in the foyer, smoothing the skirt of my white dress. I had picked it deliberately. It was modest high-necked and long-sleeved, the kind of dress a repentant woman wears when seeking redemption. But it was also perfectly tailored, sharp and crisp. It wasn't the attire of a victim, it was the attire of a fierce priestess. Leo was already at the pulpit. He wore a white three-piece suit that cost more than the average annual income of the surrounding neighborhood. He looked like an angel or a televangelist hawking miracle cures. He gripped the lectern tightly, his knuckles pale. I knew why. Jerome was behind bars, singing to the cops. The creditors were calling every hour. This service, this public signing, was his last desperate play. Confessing to the authorities, the creditors were ringing every hour. This public declaration was his final desperate gambit. He required my asset to fund his legal defense, and he depended on the church's sanctuary to preserve his reputation before the charges were officially filed. To his right sat Beatrice. She was in a wheelchair, not out of necessity, but as a calculated act of performance. Draped in a shawl, she appeared fragile and diminished, a mere shadow of the vibrant woman who had danced atop a table just 3 nights prior. She dabbed her eyes with a delicate lace handkerchief, playing the long-suffering matriarch role flawlessly. Beside her was Chloe, looking pale and uneasy. She caught my gaze from across the room and offered a subtle, nearly imperceptible nod. Her part was done. The snare was ready. The organ swelled with a deep, resonant tone that trembled through the floorboards. The moment had arrived. The usher parted the double doors and I stepped inside. The sound of 600 heads turning felt like a sudden gust of wind. Whispering erupted instantly, a soft murmur, rippling through the congregation. There she is, the deranged wife, the one who poisoned poor Beatrice. I held my chin high, eyes fixed on the cross suspended above the choir loft. I strode down the central aisle, the steady click of my heels marking my path on the carpet. Leo spotted me, and relief washed over his face. He assumed I had crumbled. He believed the threat of imprisonment and the disgrace of scandal had finally broken me. He smiled, a forgiving, magnanimous smile that churned my stomach. "Brothers and sisters," Leo declared, his voice amplified by the cutting-edge sound system, "we gather today not to condemn, but to heal. Scripture reminds us that love keeps no record of wrongs. It teaches us that a family united in faith can endure any storm." He motioned toward me as I reached the front of the church. "My wife Scarlett has endured a dark trial. The enemy assailed her mind and sought to fracture our home, but today she stands before you ready to make amends, ready to renew her commitment to this family and to the Lord's work." "Amens," echoed through the crowd. It was a masterstroke of manipulation. He was casting my capitulation as a spiritual triumph. I climbed the steps to the pulpit. Beatrice extended a trembling hand as I passed. "Scarlett," she whispered loud enough for the front row to hear, "I forgive you. I pray for you." I glanced at her, the woman who had branded me gutter trash, who had tried to rob me of my mind and dignity. I smiled. "Thank you, Mother," I replied, my voice dripping with sweet venom. "Your prayers have been answered." I took my place beside Leo. He draped an arm around my shoulder, drawing me close. I caught the scent of his cologne mingle with anxiety's faint sweat. He leaned in, his lips brushing my ear. "Just sign the papers and smile," he hissed. "Don't attempt anything. Jerome's locked up, but I still have allies out there." I gently pulled away, turning to face the congregation. I scanned the sea of faces: doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, those who had dismissed me for 5 years due to my lack of pedigree. Now they regarded me with pity. Poor Scarlett. She finally broke. Leo signaled to his attorney, Arthur, seated in the front row. Arthur stood and approached the stage carrying a leather portfolio. He opened it on the pulpit, sliding aside the Bible. He revealed a document, a hefty deed bound in blue paper. "This," Leo proclaimed, "is a deed of gift, a donation." He unfolded the thick document wrapped carefully in blue paper. "This," Leo proclaimed, "is a deed of gift, a formal donation. Scarlett has chosen to entrust the management of her business holdings to the Washington Family Trust to guarantee they serve the glory of God and benefit our community. It's a symbol of her confidence in me as the leader of her family." He extended a gold fountain pen. "Sign here, Scarlett. Let's settle this once and for all." The church fell silent. Every eye was fixed on her. This was the pivotal moment of the drama. The moment the wayward wife yielded, I reached for the pen. It felt weighty in my hand. I studied the document, the fine print filled with legalese that would strip me of everything I'd worked for. I glanced at Leo, who was practically buzzing with excitement, already imagining the money spent. I looked toward the microphone, stepped forward, leaving the papers on the lectern. I tapped the mic, the sound resonating throughout the hall. Leo's smile faded. "What are you doing? Sign it." I ignored him, gripping the mic stand firmly with both hands. "Church family," I began, my voice steady and clear. "My husband is right. The truth must be revealed. The Bible says what's done in darkness will be brought to light. And for the past 5 years, there's been much darkness in the Washington household." Leo stepped closer, a grin faltering. "Scarlett, this isn't necessary. Just sign the papers." I faced him. "Oh, but it is necessary, Leo. You asked for a testimony. You wanted the congregation to see the depth of my repentance. I believe they deserve to know the full story first." I pulled a small remote from my pocket, the controller for the church's multimedia system, which I had donated 2 years ago. I knew exactly how to operate it. Thanks to my assistant, currently in the tech booth, I was aware of what was queued up. Before I signed my fade away, I said to the assembly, "Let us all remember the love that brought us here. I want to share a revealing moment from our anniversary dinner, a moment that truly exposes my husband's character." Leo froze, his eyes locked on the remote in my hand. He glanced nervously at the huge LED screen above the choir loft. A flicker of doubt crossed his face. He had no idea about the camera footage. He believed the restaurant story was just rumor and memory. "Scarlett, give me that remote," he said, voice low and threatening. I smiled. "Watch the screen, Leo. This is your moment of truth." I pressed the button. The massive screen lit up, revealing crystal clear high-definition security footage I had legally obtained and enhanced. It showed the private dining room, a bacchanalia, the table, the flowers, the crystal glasses, all clearly visible. The congregation gasped. They recognized the setting and the people. The video zoomed in, showing me leaving the table, Beatrice adjusting her hair in the mirror, and Chloe texting. Then it focused on Leo. The church was utterly silent, so quiet you could hear a pin drop, even Leo's breath catching. On the screen, Leo glanced around nervously, his face twisting into a scornful sneer. He pulled a small white packet from his pocket. "No," Leo whispered. The footage showed him pouring the powder into my glass, stirring it with his finger, then wiping his hand clean, his eyes cold and empty as he prepared to drug his wife. A collective gasp swept through the congregation. Someone in the back row screamed. As he readied to slip a drug to his wife, a wave of shocked gasps rolled through the congregation. Someone in the back shouted out in alarm. "That's not what it seems," Leo yelled, snatching the microphone. "It was sugar, just sweetener. She likes her champagne sweet." I pressed the button again. The screen shifted to the next segment, the footage from the restaurant meltdown. It showed Beatrice thrashing on the table, kicking at the duck centerpiece. It showed her screaming about spiders. It showed her attacking Chloe. But the audio was the real bombshell. I had synced the sound from my phone recording to the video. "I know you and Leo were involved before you married his brother," Beatrice's voice screamed through the massive speakers filling the sanctuary. "I know you still are in my home." The church exploded into chaos. Pandemonium broke loose. People stood up, pointing fingers and shouting. The deacons in the front row looked like they were having heart attacks. Chloe's husband, Leo's brother, stood abruptly, his face pale with shock. He stared at Chloe, who was shrinking, trying to vanish. "Turn it off, Leo," he yelled, lunging toward me. "You're insane. Stop this." I stepped aside effortlessly, quicker, fueled by 5 years of anger. I pressed the button a third time. Now the screen displayed documents, bank statements, bold numbers glaring. "This is the Washington Family Charity Fund," I declared, my voice cutting through the uproar. "The fund you all contribute to, meant to feed the hungry and shelter the homeless." The screen scrolled, revealing transfers: $5,000 to Gucci, $10,000 to the Four Seasons, $20,000 to Dr. Stein Plastic Surgery. "And this," I said, pointing to the screen, "is where your donations really went. They didn't help the needy. They paid for Chloe's nose job, covered Leo's gambling debts, kept up the facade that these people are better than you." Leo froze mid-lunge. He looked at the screen, then at his father, the head deacon, clutching his chest in the aisle. He glanced at the congregation, now a furious mob. "You stole from the church!" a woman shouted from the balcony. "You stole from God!" Leo turned to me. He was shattered. The arrogance was gone. Only raw fear remained. "You destroyed me," he whispered. I leaned into the microphone one last time. "No, Leo, you destroyed yourself. I just flipped on the spotlight." I looked down at Beatrice. She was no longer pretending. She gasped for breath, clutching her chest, eyes wide with the bitter truth that her reign was finished. She'd been unmasked as a fraud, a mother who raised a liar and a cheater. I dropped the remote onto the podium. It hit with a weighty finality, like a judge's gavel. "I'm not signing anything," I declared, "but I do have something for you." I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope. I tossed it onto the pulpit. "These are the divorce papers and the eviction notice. Leave my house." I descended from the pulpit. The crowd parted before me like the Red Sea. Their eyes no longer held pity, they held fear and respect. I strode down the aisle, head held high. I didn't glance back at the turmoil on stage. I ignored the husband trying to justify himself to a bloodthirsty crowd. I didn't look back at the mother-in-law slumped, defeated in her wheelchair. I stepped out the double doors into the blazing sunlight. The air was crisp. Birds sang. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing nearer. The double doors swung open, flooding the space with brilliant sunlight. The air was fresh and sharp. Birds chirped melodiously. Sirens whammed faintly in the distance, growing steadily louder. I paused on the church steps and drew a deep breath. It was finished. The poison was out in the open, the truth had been revealed. I caught sight of a police cruiser turning the corner, its lights flashing urgently. They were coming for Leo. Jerome had confessed. The video had played. The evidence was undeniable. I made my way to my car, slid inside and locked the doors. From my window, I watched as officers hurried up the church steps and entered the sanctuary to apprehend my husband on the very altar of his own pride. I started the engine, shifted into drive. I had a flight to catch. Paris was calling me, and at last I was ready to answer. Behind the choir loft, the enormous LED screen flickered on. Normally reserved for hymn lyrics or potluck announcements, today it displayed vivid, high-definition documentary footage. The image was sharp and luminous, casting a cold blue glow across the dim sanctuary. It showed the interior of the private dining room at Bacchanalia. The camera angle was broad and elevated, capturing the entire table. The congregation gasped as one. They recognized the place. They recognized the faces. There was Beatrice adjusting her pearls, Chloe texting beneath the table, and Leo. I stood at the pulpit, eyes fixed on the screen and the crowd. Confusion shifted to intense focus across their faces. Leo froze, his hand halfway lifted toward me, his complexion draining of color. He looked like a salt statue, on the verge of crumbling. On the screen, the digital timestamp ticked forward. The video zoomed in sharply, centering solely on Leo. The resolution was so detailed you could see the sweat beading his forehead. His eyes darted nervously left and right around the room. Then his hand slipped into his jacket pocket. A profound silence descended over the church, as if the air itself had vanished. 600 people held their breath in unison. On the screen, Leo withdrew a small white packet. He opened it swiftly, with practiced ease. He leaned over my champagne glass. The white powder poured into the golden liquid. It fizzed briefly, then vanished. A woman in the front row let out a sharp, terrified scream. The video kept playing. Leo stirred the drink with his pinky finger, wiped his hand on a napkin, then lifted his gaze. The look frozen on his face was monstrous cold, calculating, utterly devoid of empathy. It was the expression of a man deciding to destroy his wife's life. "No," Leo whispered. His voice was a dry rasp, barely audible over the silence. "No, that's fake. It's a deep fake. She made it all up." I pressed the remote button again. The screen went black, but the audio system came alive. The massive speakers, built to amplify gospel choirs and booming sermons, now echoed a faint, haunting recording. The sounds of a bathroom, tiles echoing, water running. Then Leo's voice, loud and clear, filling the sanctuary. Plan A failed. She didn't drink it. My mother did. Yes, Beatrice, she's in the ER. She's psychotic. The congregation recoiled as if struck physically. They looked toward Beatrice, seated in her wheelchair on the stage, staring at the screen, her mouth agape in silent denial. The audio continued, sitting in her wheelchair on the stage, eyes fixed on the screen, her mouth agape in stunned silence. The audio continued to play. Leo's voice was frantic, urgent. I need that conservatorship, Arthur. Without access to her accounts, I'm finished. We'll claim she's been unstable. We'll say she drugged my mother. That judge has to approve a temporary hold by Monday morning. A low murmur swept through the congregation, growing into a wave of outrage and disbelief. These people knew Leo. They had worked with him, trusted him, and now they were hearing him scheme to trap his wife just to cover his own debts. Leo glanced around wildly. The faces of friends, neighbors, and business associates no longer showed respect, only disgust. "Turn it off," he shouted, lunging at me. "You witch, stop it." I stepped back calmly, placing the pulpit between us. Pressing the button a third time, the screen shifted from video to a spreadsheet, a series of bank statements. Bold, clear font displayed the logo of Ebenezer Baptist Church Charity Fund at the top. The murmurs escalated into a roar. This was their money, the fund they contributed to weekly, meant for shelters and feeding the needy. My voice cut through the clamor as I spoke into the microphone. "You all know my father-in-law is the head deacon," I said. "You entrusted him with your funds, and he trusted his son with the access codes. Leo told you he invested the surplus in low-risk bonds. He promised to grow the church's wealth." I pointed to the scrolling document listing wire transfers over the past 2 years. The sums were staggering. Transfer to Apex Coin, Cayman Islands, $50,000, transfer to MGM Grand, Las Vegas, $25,000, transfer to C. Miller, Consulting, $5,000, transfer to Dr. Stein Plastic Surgery, Buckhead, $20,000. The total at the bottom glowed red. $500,000, $500,000 stolen from the church, stolen from God. The sanctuary erupted into chaos. People stood on pews shouting. A man in the balcony hurled his hymnal toward the stage. It thudded near Leo's feet. "Thief!" someone yelled. "You robbed the poor!" Chloe's husband rose from the third row, staring at the line item for Sim Miller Consulting on the screen. Then he looked at Chloe, who was shrinking into herself, trying to vanish. "Plastic surgery," he cried, voice cracking. "You told me your parents paid for that. You said it was an inheritance." Chloe broke down, tears streaming as she hid her face. The crowd around her parted as if recoiling. Leo stood at center stage amidst the wreckage of his reputation. He looked at the screen, exposing his offenses in stark terms. He glanced at the congregation, now a furious mob. He looked at his father, the head deacon, clutching his chest in the front row, pale with shock and disgrace. And then his eyes fell on his mother. Beatrice stared at the screen, seeing the money meant for her standing, her legacy, squandered on gambling and her daughter-in-law's cosmetic surgery. She watched the video of her son poisoning her drink. Her inheritance was squandered on gambling and her daughter-in-law's cosmetic procedures. She viewed the footage of her son lacing her drink with poison. In that instant, she understood she wasn't the queen. She was merely collateral damage. Her hand clenched her chest. Her complexion shifted to a terrifying shade of purple. She emitted a gasping, wheezing noise. This time it was genuine, not an act to solicit sympathy. "My chest," she gasped. "I can't breathe." She slumped forward in her wheelchair, sliding sideways and hitting the stage floor with a heavy, sickening thud. Mother Leo screamed. He rushed to her side, dropping to his knees. "Mom, wake up! Mom, get up!" But Beatrice didn't respond. Her eyes rolled back. Her breathing was shallow and uneven. "Call 911, someone shouted. "Is there a doctor here?" Several people hurried onto the stage. A congregation member who was a physician began administering CPR. Chaos reigned. The organist had stopped playing, but the screen's hum continued, broadcasting undeniable proof of the crime. I stood by the pulpit, observing with a strange detachment. I hadn't wished for Beatrice's death. I just wanted her to stop. Yet, as I watched paramedics rush in through the back doors, pushing a gurney down the aisle, I realized this is the price of deception. The truth is heavy, and when you drop it on someone who has spent a lifetime constructing a fragile facade, the collapse is complete. The sanctuary doors burst open again. This time, it wasn't paramedics, but a team of officers in tactical gear, followed by men in suits, the Atlanta Police Department, and the Economic Crimes Unit. They moved with precision, swarming the stage. The lead detective, a man I'd spoken to by phone, walked directly to Leo, still kneeling beside his unconscious mother. "Leo Washington," the detective's voice boomed over the chaos. "You are under arrest for attempted murder, embezzlement, and fraud." Leo looked up, tears streaming down his face, mingling with snot and sweat. He appeared childlike and pitiful. "My mother," he sobbed. "My mother is dying." "You should have thought about that before you poisoned her," the detective replied. He hauled Leo to his feet, spun him around, and snapped handcuffs onto his wrists. The metallic click was the most satisfying sound I'd ever heard. They hauled him away as he struggled, kicking and screaming, pleading with his father and the past for help. But nobody moved. The congregation watched in cold silence. They had seen the evidence. They had watched the video. Mercy had vanished from this room. The paramedics lifted Beatrice onto the stretcher and hurried her out the side exit, her face obscured by an oxygen mask. I didn't know if she would survive. In that moment, I realized I didn't care. I glanced at Chloe, sitting alone in the pew sobbing. Her husband had walked away. Her in-laws refused to meet her gaze. She wore a 10-carat diamond bracelet on her wrist, a bracelet purchased with stolen church funds. It sparkled in the light, a self-made shackle. I picked up the remote and pressed power off. The screen went dark. The evidence disappeared, but the damage was done. The truth was seared into everyone's memory. I gathered my purse, smoothed my white dress, and descended the pulpit steps. The path to the door was clear. People stepped aside as I passed, giving me a wide berth, their eyes filled with a mix of fear and awe. They stepped aside as I moved past, giving me ample room, their gazes a blend of fear and wonder. I was no longer Scarlett, the impoverished girl from Bankhead. I was the woman who had toppled the temple. I emerged from the church into the dazzling afternoon light. The air carried the scent of exhaust and ozone. I inhaled deeply, filling my lungs with air that tasted like freedom. My phone vibrated in my pocket. A message from the airline. "Your flight to Paris departs in 3 hours." A smile crossed my lips. I made my way to my car, the sound of my heels clicking against the pavement. I didn't glance back. The sirens dwindled into the distance. The spectacle had ended, and I had a plane to catch. The sanctuary of Ebenezer Baptist Church had transformed from a place of worship into a stage of judgment. The atmosphere was thick with the sounds of sorrow and the heavy clatter of steel handcuffs. I stood near the altar, my white dress immaculate amid the turmoil, witnessing the downfall of the House of Washington. It was a slow-motion collapse, a crumbling monument erected on sand and lies. Leo knelt, but not in prayer. 2 officers restrained him on the plush red carpet. His white suit was stained with dust and sweat. He sobbed a raw, ugly sound that echoed off the vaulted ceiling. He looked up at me, eyes bloodshot and wide with disbelief. "Scarlett," he gasped. "Scarlett, tell them. Tell them it's a mistake. Tell them I'm your husband." I looked down at him, feeling an unfamiliar emptiness where my heart once was. There was no sympathy, only the cold satisfaction of settling a score. "You were my husband, Leo," I said softly but clearly over his cries. "Now you're just a liability." The detective pulled him to his feet. Leo struggled, his feet dragging as they led him down the center aisle. The congregation recoiled, drawing back their Sunday best as if his disgrace was contagious. The man who had entered like a king was being hauled out like a common criminal. He called for his father. He called for the pastor, but no one responded. The evidence displayed was irrefutable. There was no defense left. As the heavy oak doors closed behind the police escort, I turned my attention to the others remaining on the scene. Beatrice had been rushed out on a stretcher. but the corruption she had sown lingered. I noticed movement in the third pew. Chloe was attempting to make herself small, slipping into the shadow of a marble pillar near the side exit. She clutched her purse tightly, knuckles white. She believed she could vanish in the chaos. She thought she could slip out the side door and return to her life of luncheons and deceit. She was mistaken. David Leo's younger brother stepped forward from the pew, blocking her escape. I had always liked David, quiet and hardworking. He was the only family member who had treated me with simple respect, mostly because he was too occupied with work to partake in his mother's schemes. But now he looked broken. Chloe froze, looking up at her husband with a face masked in terrified innocence. "David," she whispered, "David, we need to leave. This is insane. We have to get home to the kids." David remained still. He raised his phone. Though the screen was cracked, the image was clear. It was the photo I had sent him minutes earlier, the picture of Chloe and Leo at the Fontainebleau, laughing over oysters bought with stolen money. "Home," David repeated, his voice hollow and lifeless. "There is no home, Chloe." "Home," David echoed, his tone empty and void of feeling. "There is no home, Chloe." "Not for you." Chloe reached toward him. "David, please, it's not as it seems. Scarlett is deceiving you. She altered those pictures. She's trying to break us apart." David chuckled a sharp, harsh bark that made onlookers recoil. "Don't deceive me. Not anymore. I've seen the bank transactions, Chloe. I saw the consulting payments, $5,000 a month. That's what you cost. That's the price of your allegiance to me. $5,000 and a bracelet." He seized her wrist, raised her arm, revealing the diamond tennis bracelet sparkling beneath the church lights. It was the bracelet I had given her, the one Leo had purchased with funds meant for the needy. "Take it off," David commanded. Chloe pulled away. "No, it belongs to me." "Take it off," David shouted, his voice cracking. She knew I could lock her up in a cell beside Leo if I wished. She turned and fled, down the side aisle, her heels echoing on the stone floor. She burst through the side door into the sweltering afternoon, leaving behind her marriage, her reputation, and the diamonds she had sacrificed her soul for. The church fell silent now. The storm had passed, leaving only ruin. I smoothed my dress and readied myself to leave. I had accomplished what I came to do. "Scarlett," the voice was tired and aged. I paused. At the base of the pulpit steps stood Deacon Washington, Leo's father. He looked as if he had aged decades in mere minutes. His shoulders slumped, his suit jacket hung loosely. He clutched a Bible in one hand and pressed the other to his chest. A proud man, a man who had founded this church, who had built a legacy, and he had just witnessed his son destroy it all. I waited. I owed him nothing, yet I would listen. "Scarlett," he said, his voice shaking. I didn't know." I met his gaze. I believed him. He was a man who preferred ignorance, letting Beatrice manage the household and Leo the business while he shook hands and blessed infants. His ignorance was his refuge, but ignorance is not innocence. "You should have known, Deacon," I said softly. "You were the treasurer. You gave him the codes. You turned a blind eye when the figures didn't add up because it was easier than facing your son." He bowed his head. I trusted him. "He's my son." "He's a thief," I said, "and a predator, and you set him loose on me." Deacon Washington looked up, tears glistening in his eyes. "I am deeply sorry, Scarlett, sorry for what they did to you. For what Beatrice said, for the drugs. I had no idea it had gone this far. Please tell me how I can make this right. We can repay you. I'll sell the lake house. I'll sell the cars. Just don't ruin the family name. It's all I have left." I regarded this broken man. He sought mercy. He begged me to hold the damage. He wanted to preserve the facade even when the foundation was crumbling. I reached into my purse. I had one final envelope. It wasn't divorce papers. It wasn't a police report. It was a deed. "I appreciate your apology, Deacon," I said coolly, "but you can't repay me. You don't have the money." He frowned, puzzled. "What do you mean? We have assets. We have the estate." I pulled a document from the envelope and handed it to him. "I know about the estate," I said. "I know Leo took out a second mortgage on your home 3 years ago. I know he forged your signature just as he forged mine. 3 years ago, a second mortgage was taken out on your home. I'm certain he forged your signature, just as he did mine. I'm aware the bank was set to foreclose next week because he hasn't made a payment in half a year. Deacon Washington stared at the document, his hands trembling so violently that the paper shook. Foreclosure? No, that house was fully paid off. I corrected myself. It was paid off until your son squandered it on risky cryptocurrency ventures and an extravagant lifestyle. I endured the attacks hurled at me and built an unbreakable fortress from the rubble. I glanced at my phone and saw a notification from my bank. The transfer had been completed, the insurance policy was canceled, and the cash value deposited. The debt sale was finalized, I was free, and they were destroyed. I slid into my car and adjusted the mirror, meeting my own gaze. I didn't see a victim, I saw a CEO. I saw a survivor, I started the engine, I had a flight to catch. Paris awaited, and I planned to toast with champagne from my own glass. The Fulton County Jail reeked of harsh bleach, and the pungent sweat of men resigned to their fate. I sat in the visitation room on a metal stool bolted to the floor. With the air conditioner broken, the air was thick and heavy. I checked my reflection in the plexiglass barrier. My makeup was impeccable, my hair flawless. I looked like a woman who had just hit the jackpot because in many ways I had. The heavy steel door buzzed and clanked open. A guard escorted Leo in. He wore an orange jumpsuit several sizes too large. His head was shaved. The polished haircut and tailored suits were gone, replaced by the state-issued uniform. He seemed diminished, deflated. He sat down and lifted the phone receiver. His hands trembled. I lifted mine. "Scarlett," he said, his voice wavering. "You came. I knew you would. You have to get me out of here. The lawyer said bail is set at $2 million. You have the money. You can pay." I looked at him. The man who tried to drug me into submission. The man who stole from the church and from me. "I don't have the money, Leo," I said calmly. "I sold the firm yesterday. The assets are now in a trust you cannot touch. And even if I did have the money, I wouldn't spend a penny on you." Tears welled in his eyes. I leaned forward, my face inches from his, separated only by the scratched plastic. "Don't worry, Leo," I said softly but firmly. "You're not going to die. I made sure of it." He looked up, hope flickering in his eyes. "What do you mean?" "I canceled the life insurance policy," I said. "The one you took out on me and the one you took out on yourself." He blinked, confused. "Why?" "Because you're worth more to me alive," I said. "If you die, it's over. You'd be taking the easy way out. But if you live, you have to pay. You'll sit in a cell for 20 years, thinking about every dollar you stole. You'll work in the prison laundry for 12 cents an hour and send me restitution checks for the rest of your life." I smiled. "I want you to live a long time, Leo. I want you to live until you're very old. I want you to remember every champagne toast. I want you to remember the taste of the good life you threw away. I want you to rot slowly." His face crumbled. Beatrice sat in a wheelchair by the window, gazing out at a brick wall. She looked fragile. The stroke she suffered at the church had weakened her left side, and her face drooped slightly. She appeared delicate. The stroke she suffered at the church had weakened her left side, causing her face to droop slightly. She wore a worn hospital gown. Her pearls were gone. Her Chanel suit was gone. She looked exactly like what she was, an elderly woman stripped of everything. I stepped inside. She turned her head slowly. When she saw me, her eyes widened. For a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of her old fire, her former pride, but it vanished quickly, replaced by fear. "Scarlett," she whispered hoarsely, her speech slurred. "Hello, Mother," I said. "I brought you something." I set a small bag of toiletries on the bed's simple soap, toothpaste, the essentials. It was charity, and it stung her more deeply than any cruelty could. "Why have you come?" she asked, trying to assert herself. "No," I replied. "I came to check if you're comfortable." She let out a bitter chuckle that turned into a cough. "Comfortable? Look at this place. It's a dump. Get me out of here, Scarlett." A plastic pitcher of lukewarm water and a small carton of orange juice sat nearby. I grabbed the juice, gave it a shake, peeled back the foil, and poured the bright yellow liquid into a plastic cup. The vibrant color stood out against the dull room. I held the cup toward her. Her hand reached out, trembling. Her fingers were gnarled and arthritic. She took the cup and brought it to her lips, clearly thirsty. Then I spoke softly. Drink it, mother. Just juice. I promise. She hesitated. The cup hovered just above her mouth. She glanced at the juice, then at me. I leaned closer, locking eyes with her. I swear, there's nothing in it, I murmured, unless you want to swap cups, like at that restaurant, remember? Her eyes widened with terror. The memories of scopolamine, hallucinations, spiders, and losing control flooded back. She saw the devil in my gaze. Oh, wait. She's living in a motel in Alabama. I left the room, walked down the corridor, past the nurse's station, past the indifference and decay, stepped outside into the parking lot. The sun was setting. The sky was streaked with brilliant purple and orange hues. It reminded me of the painting Leo had bought me on our first date, the one I'd burned in the fireplace before selling the house. I got into my car, checked my phone. My flight to Paris was in 4 hours. First class one way. I started the engine. I felt light. I felt free. The debt was settled. The account closed. I drove away from the nursing home, leaving the past behind in the rearview mirror. No guilt, no sorrow. Just the feeling of a woman who had walked through fire and emerged not as ashes, but as gold. I merged onto the highway and pressed the gas. The future awaited, tasting like champagne pure, cold and safe. I shed the Washington name from everything. Returned to my maiden name. I was Scarlett Davis once again. It felt like slipping into a pair of worn-in jeans after years in a corset. I could breathe, but I didn't just keep the money. Money without meaning is just paper. I wanted to ensure the fortune Leo tried to steal would serve a purpose, to balance the cosmic scales. Beatrice had spent her life looking down on girls from my neighborhood. She had spent her life trying to shut people like me out of her world. So I built a door she could never close. I founded the Scarlett Davis Scholarship for Future Leaders. It was fully funded. I created a gateway she could never shut behind her. I established the Scarlett Davis Scholarship for Aspiring Leaders, fully endowed. This scholarship would cover 4 years of college fees for girls, from bankhead bright, ambitious young women tired of being told they didn't belong. I returned to the high school myself to announce it, standing in the very auditorium where I once sat, dreaming of breaking free. He'd been assigned to the kitchen crew, scrubbing dishes for 12 hours straight each day. It seemed fitting, finally learning the true meaning of hard work. Beatrice remained confined in the state facility. A nurse told me she spent her days gazing out the window, murmuring about her pearls. No one had visited her in months. The socialites she'd cultivated over years had abandoned her the moment the scandal surfaced like rats, deserting a sinking ship. She was left alone with her memories and bitterness, trapped by her own making. Chloe had disappeared. The last I heard, she was working as a hostess in a rundown bar in Alabama, searching for another man to rescue her. But no one would come, not with her face plastered all over the internet, as an accomplice in a fraud case. She had traded her integrity for a bracelet she no longer even possessed. With the past behind me, I turned my gaze toward the future. Traveling had always been a dream. I picked up my phone and saw a notification from my private Swiss bank. I opened the app. The interface was sleek and straightforward. Transaction complete. Sale of MW Holdings assets finalized. Insurance payout deposited. Court-ordered restitution received. I looked at the balance, the numbers sharp and clear against the white screen. $9,200,000. I stared at the figure. It was a fortune. Enough to live here forever if I wished. Enough to launch a new venture. Enough to never answer to anyone again. But it wasn't just money, it was the final reckoning. The score at the end of the battle. Leo had demanded $5 million. He was willing to break me to get it. He lost everything, and I walked away with nearly twice what he sought. I set the phone down and gazed at the horizon where the sun was sinking into the sea, painting the sky in shades of violet and gold. It reminded me of the bruises on my heart when I first uncovered the truth. But those bruises had healed. Now they were just scars, and scars are proof that you survived. I thought back to that night at the restaurant, the moment I saw him pour the powder. The split-second choice to switch the drinks. It was reflex, instinct, but also something deeper. A clear understanding of who I am and who they are. They looked at me and saw a victim, a girl from the wrong side of the tracks who should be thankful just to be at the table. They assumed I craved their approval. They believed I'd do anything to keep the Washington name. They thought I was a sheep, ready to be shorn and slaughtered without resistance. They thought I was soft. They thought I was foolish. They forgot where I came from. They forgot you don't escape poverty by being gentle. You break free by being vigilant, by being quicker and smarter than the dangers that stalk you. They thought I was a lamb in a den of wolves, that they could surround and devour me at their leisure. They forgot nature's most important rule: a lamb doesn't drink with the devil. A lamb runs, but I didn't run. I stayed. I sat at their table. I ate their food. With the devil at my side, the lamb flees, but I stood my ground. I remained. I took my place at their table. I tasted their food. I returned their insults with a smile. And when they lunged to wound me, I revealed I was no meek lamb. I was the lion they never anticipated. I raise my cup of tea. I toast the fading sun. To the days ahead, I murmur, I sip. The tea is cool, sweet, and comforting. The sun dips beneath the horizon. Stars begin to twinkle one after another. I am alone in the vast ocean. Yet I am not lonely. I am fulfilled. I am complete. I am wealthy. I close my eyes and listen to the sea. It sounds like a standing ovation. This tale reminds us that our true value is never measured by the approval of those who aim to belittle us. Scarlett's Path teaches that silence does not mean weakness. Often it is a deliberate pause to gather strength and proof for justice. We discover that family must be grounded in respect, not merely blood ties. When toxic relationships threaten our well-being, the strongest choice is to protect ourselves unapologetically with financial freedom and unyielding boundaries. In the end, we must be our own heroes, brave enough to leave behind tables where love is no longer served. Have you ever had to outwit a toxic family member to safeguard your peace? Share your story in the comments below, and remember to like and subscribe for more empowering tales of justice delivered.